The series is stated in the 12 months 2149, when the Earth's capability to support existence is accomplishing its end. As oxygen is depleting day by day, due to overdevelopment, human beings are having difficulties breathing. So they are pressured to wear specialized masks. Moreover, the world has emerged as so polluted that the vegetation can no longer develop and fruits are regarded uncommon to maintain things strictly beneath control. A military-like regulation enforcement system has been imposed. They have adopted a two-infant coverage to fight the overpopulation issue. On the different hand, the scientists have also completed a breakthrough. They have found a tear in the fabric of house time, which leads them to Terranova, the prehistoric Earth of 85 million years ago. In different words, the scientists have located a time portal that can teleport them to the Krita duration where the world is nonetheless green and dinosaurs are nevertheless energetic. Jim Shannon, a cop with the aid of profession, enters his residence, carrying a rebreather, which is an oxygen mask to help airflow. Jim lives with his wife, Elizabeth, a scientific officer, and 3 children, Josh, Maddie and Zoe. In this way, in spite of being a cop himself, he has violated the 2-toddler policy. Soon, he takes out an orange from his bag and the complete household is very surprised since fruit and vegetables are in brief supply. As the family is having a precise time with the orange, what does that mean? Maddie all at once enters the apartment and warns them that she saw the population control police in the lobby. This alarms the parents, and they rapidly conceal little Zoe in an air vent rapidly after the police come in and start rummaging through the place. It appears as if anybody knowledgeable them about the 0.33 child. At least if they find her, her ultimate reminiscence will be going nuts with that orange. They search everywhere, however fail to find the little girl. However, just as they're about to leave, he scared Zoe whims from the vent and receives observed devastated. Jim begs the police officers to release his daughter and even starts war them. However, he is without problems outnumbered and taken into custody himself for his offense. He's exceeded over an 12-month sentence. 2 years later, Elizabeth tips off a prison defend and ultimately manages to visit her husband. Jim is ailing in his phone due to poor air pleasant and the lack of a rebreather as the two conceal. Elizabeth exhibits that she has been given a position as a scientific officer in the 10th pilgrimage, but she is not allowed to take Zoe. The 10th pilgrimage is the 10th team of human colonists who will be allowed to journey to Terranova, the place they can start a new lifestyles before leaving. She tells Jim that he is their closing hope and sneaks in a rebreather. After a while, Jim checks the rebreather and finds a hidden laser knife internal hot rattling in the next scene. Elizabeth, Maddie and Josh check in, go through security and head toward the time portal. On the different hand, Jim manages to get out of the prison with the assist of the laser knife and arrives at the check-in area. He slides into a restrained room, the place he pays a large quantity of cash in exchange for a certain bag. Unfortunately, the officers be aware him on camera, breaching the restricted region. By means of this time Elizabeth and the kids have already walked in via the portal. But when Jim tries to observe them, an officer stops him. When you consider that the time portal is irreversible, anyone who reaches Terranova can't return. Jim is aware of about this. So he elbows the officer, steals his gun and runs into the portal to comply with his family. As quickly as he enters the portal, he reaches the prehistoric Earth, which is definitely unique from the world. They simply left. Jim eventually reunites with his family. But when his soldier notices the weapon in his hand, he is held at gunpoint. The soldier then assessments the suspicious bag that Jim is carrying and especially little Zoe comes out of it. Seeing the complete household together, the soldiers leave them be. What you are doing is all kinds of illegal, but god damn it, you made it to dinosaur world. So have a desirable day. Later, as the group proceeds in the direction of Terranova, little Zoe feedback on the sky, she notes that she had in no way seen the cloud. So white and the trees so green. After coming into Terranova for the first time, the vacationers of the 10th pilgrimage are greeted through Commander Nathaniel Taylor, one of the first humans to enter the journey portal. He offers a short introduction of the region and assures that everyone is going to have a higher existence from today onwards, so lengthy as they don't get their asses ripped off through dinosaurs. Following this, he confronts Jim and Elizabeth and berates them for breaking the law. However, when the couple pleads for a fresh start, he lets them hold their 3 children. Jim wishes to continue to be a cop in Terranova as well. But given his history, Taylor assigns him to the agricultural department. Next, the family settles into their new domestic. Maddie and Zoe combat for their new rooms while their mother and father contemplate if they made the right selection by using coming to Terranova, as absolutely everyone is busy transferring their belongings. They be aware that Zoe has wandered off backyard. A curious Zoe methods of borrow soar he dinosaur species and feeds it with some fern. Surprisingly, the giant herbivore accepts it, which makes the little girl very happy. The following day, Josh and Maddie head towards an orientation assembly where they meet a fellow resident, Sky, and her friends, Tasha, Max and Hunter. After the introductions, Josh decides to explore Terranova with Sky whilst Maddie prefers to learn about their new home. By attending the orientation meeting rapidly after Sky and her buddies take Josh into the jungle, they arrive at a stunning waterfall and leap into it. Close to the waterfall, Sky suggests Josh some rocks where golden colored symbols are carved into them. Since Taylor is forbidden anyone to visit this area, Sky makes Josh promise to keep the stones a secret elsewhere. In the scientific sector, Elizabeth attends to an affected person surrounded by means of officers. She wonders why the affected person wants security, and one of the officers informs her that he is a Sixers member. Sixers show up to be a team of rebels who have separated themselves from Terra Nova. Their main goal is to overthrow Commander Taylor and rob the most important colony of all its resources. Suddenly the affected person jumps from his mattress and threatens to kill Elizabeth with a laser knife. After using her as a hostage and forcing the officers to disarm, the man flees outside. Jim notices the man appearing suspicious and follows him quickly enough. The man attempts to assault Taylor, however Jim efficiently stops him. Jim knows that there is extra than a mere paradise in Terra Nova. So he demands Taylor provide an explanation for about the man and why he was attempting to kill him. However, with everybody around, the latter insists Jim get in his vehicle for a ride. After the two reach the same waterfall for earlier, then Taylor begins explaining about the Sixers. He exhibits that the Sixers got here from the sixth pilgrimage with a secret furnish of weapons. However, he doesn't recognize why the crew wants to overthrow him. Taylor then commends Jim on his bravery and gives him to join Terra Nova's security forces. As the two proceed chatting, they notice a group of Sixers heading towards their colony. Wasting no time, they commence pursuing the Sixers, but realize that they are surely fleeing from two Karis, a species of Karis dinosaurs. Taylor and his crew by some means manage to repel the dinosaurs, however they nevertheless have to deal with their arch-enemies. Mira, the chief of the Sixers, comes out of her vehicle, alongside with the others, and starts talking. She exhibits that she is there to negotiate the release of Carter, the equal man who tried to kill Taylor earlier. She then brings forth a giant container of meteoric iron, an extremely uncommon thing, and proposes to exchange it for Carter. Realizing that the factor is too valuable to supply up on, Taylor consents to the phrases and releases Carter some other place in the jungle. Josh, Sky, and the other friends begin making booze from wild fruits while they're enjoying themselves. They hear a loud roar. Sky explains. It's an AXA raptor, otherwise recognized as the Slasher. It is a dinosaur species with colorful feathers, and they whip-like belated tail, successful of reducing a man in half. But she assures Josh no longer to worry, and slashers primarily hunt at night. Mostly. Suddenly they hear an even louder howl, so they determine to return to their vehicle. However, they are quickly spotted via a couple of lethal slashers. The crew by some means manages to take refuge in an armored automobile abandoned by using the Sixers. But by this time, countless slashers have surrounded them in the attack. Tasha, Max, and Hunter gets critically injured, returned in the colony. Terra Nova Protection finds photos of the teenagers sneaking away, fearing the worst. Jim, Elizabeth, and some soldiers head to the wooded area to rescue the children. Fortunately, they discover the team in the neck of time and scare away the dinosaurs using some superior machinery. Following the close call, they return to Terra Nova later. Sky visits Taylor in his residence and apologizes for initiating the trip. During their conversation, we realize that Sky is an orphan whose dad served beneath Taylor. Both of her mother and father have been taken away by way of fever some years back. Imagine dwelling with dinosaurs and getting killed by using a fever. One day, a team of Terra Nova soldiers goes out into the woods to get some supplies. However, they are attacked and brutally killed by using some unseen creatures. In the meantime, Josh, Maddie, and attend a survival seminar taught by means of Lieutenant Alicia Washington. The second in command to Taylor, Maddie, is a smart child, and she eagerly answers most of the questions requested by using the lieutenant. Later that night, when Jim and Elizabeth begin getting intimate, a creature begins screaming. So Jim goes outside to inspect. It is the same unseen animal that attacked the soldiers earlier. But Jim would not know this, so he really scares it away. The following day, Taylor and Jim diagram to search for the lacking men, wondering it was the Sixers that attacked them. Meanwhile, Elizabeth is working in the clinical region when she bumps into Malcolm Wallace. One of her correct friends from university. Malcolm tells her that he is a science officer there. That sounds made up. Malcolm simply then Jim walks in and interrupts their conversation. Elizabeth shortly introduces the two to every other. However, when Malcolm learns that Jim is her husband, he is taken aback in the next scene. Jim, along with Taylor and the crew, head out to the woods. While riding, Taylor asks Jim to look at who is giving Mira information about Terra Nova. He believes that there may be a mole within the colony. The team then arrives at the homicide spot. When they see the useless soldiers, they note that their faces have been disfigured. After a bit of checking around, they deliver the useless bodies again to Terra Nova. And the scientific team led by using Elizabeth and Malcolm starts analyzing them. Elizabeth deduces that the troopers were attacked from above. Just then Jim, who is additionally in the lab, notices a claw-like piece on one of the corpses. With this clue, the medical officers figure out to remain late, to find out what creature could have killed the men. However, even after hours of research, they don't discover any specimen that suits the mysterious claw. When Elizabeth returns home, Jim asks her about Malcolm after he presses the issue. She sooner or later tells him that she dated Malcolm for a while earlier than breaking it off herself, probably after mastering that there's no such aspect as a science officer. Later that night, the couple attempts intimacy as soon as again, however to their awful luck, they are once more interrupted by means of the identical creature. This thing is unsafe and they pervert this time. Josh joins his father at Aspect and they see numerous of the same creatures there. Josh tries scaring them away with a rock, but only ends up making them angry. They swarm over the father-son duo like a lethal rash, but before any serious harm has precipitated, Josh and Jim make it inside the house. The next day, Malcolm examines Jim's injuries from the creatures and realizes that they're the same ones that killed the men. After treating the injuries, a curious Jim asks Taylor about Malcolm and learns that he used to be the one who requested Elizabeth's survival on Terra Nova outside Sky and Josh are roaming around the market when they observe a massive flock of the same birds. However, before they ought to warn the others, the birds begin attacking everyone. They depart the area after a few minutes, but via this time, numerous residents are seriously injured. Meanwhile, Malcolm recovers one of the lifeless birds and concludes that they're an unknown type of Pterosaur species of flying reptile in a meeting with Taylor and his crew. Malcolm deduces that the pterosaurs may additionally be migrating. Taylor reveals that years ago, he and Lieutenant Alicia had located lots of eggshells whilst digging the floor on which Terra Nova sits today. But given that they had been already hatched, the officers thought the creatures had lengthy in view that moved on. Additionally, the shells made the floor so fertile that they determined to make the agreement in this location. Hearing this, Malcolm concludes that the pterosaurs are attacking them due to the fact Terra Nova sits upon their breeding grounds. Since the clinical officers do no longer comprehend a lot about the new species, Malcolm and Elizabeth tell Taylor that they will want a live male and lady specimen of the Terra supply to strive to come up with an answer to protect in opposition to them. Next, Jim prepares to head out of the colony to get the specimens whilst Malcolm important points him about the species. However, as a substitute of listening, Jim confronts him for nevertheless being in love with his wife as he used to be the one who requested her presence in Terra Nova. This shocks Malcolm, and he defends himself by saying that he known as Elizabeth as she is the high-quality medical officer he has ever acknowledged. A while later, Jim returns with the two said specimens after analyzing the creatures. Malcolm and Elizabeth discover that they can produce an extraordinarily effective PHMO that should be used to entice all of the TSOs away from the colony and to another area. The place they can breed is more. TSOs proceed to arrive at the agreement. Taylor orders the safety team participants to be stationed all around the colony. Mark Reynolds, a younger soldier who certainly has a crush on Maddie, comes to her domestic for security. On the other hand, Josh also brings Sky to maintain her secure from the creatures. Soon after, a large swarm of Pterosaurs invades the contract and starts off evolved, wreaking havoc. A few of them pressure their way into Jim's residence with the aid of the air duct. Mark, being a soldier, tries to scare them away, but only ends up getting his ass knocked out. Despite this, Josh and the crew fight violently and preserve off the creatures long ample to lock themselves in another room someplace else at the clinical lab. Elizabeth and Malcolm sooner or later completed making ready the pones. Now all they have to do is entice the Terra SOS away. The commander Taylor decides to volunteer, and Jim also joins him soon. The two equipment up and leave in an automobile which begins spraying the pone. Surprisingly, the format works, and to no matter Taylor and Jim receiving some minor cuts, they manage to lure the complete swarm of TSOs away from Terra Nova.